Hello, welcome to Red River Cart Adventures. This is Meet Up with Mason. I'm Rose Mason. So today on the show we have Aurel and Joseph and my mom. So we got some good people here today, lovely people. So yeah, we're going to talk about some Red River cart construction. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. We make a lot of Red River carts. I've one up here. I've made about 300 and shipped them around the world. And then the original carts, I made about 25 and shipped those around the world. And I went up, Churchill got one, Medicine Hat got one, Thompson, Edinburgh, Scotland, Juno Beach, France, and University of Alberta in Edmonton got one there. We went there to look for it, and there it was by the Métis schoolhouse. And there was a cart there, there was a teepee there, and there was a tent there. And they're all Métis talking about all that stuff.
Wow.
Then one time I was asked to make a Red River cart for Juno Beach, France. So I got Armin and Fabian to give me a hand. We built one. We shipped it over to Europe, to Paris, and we went over there and waited for it. And, Canadian government had a museum there, big museum with all war stuff on there. So when we went over there, we waited a couple of days for it, and come over, we put it together, and it was rather interesting, and I enjoyed it. I'll never forget something like that in all my life. There was German bunkers right beside them all the way along the coast.
Wow,
And then one time we were in France, we went inside a German bunker. Walls are like this.
Wow.
Something different, eh? And then we seen on the boats for movies where they were Métis and Aboriginals as soldiers, but nobody said they were Aboriginals or Métis. Nobody said anything like that. They just called themselves French. But rather interesting.
Yeah.
So can you guys tell us a little bit about the history of the Red River cart?
Well, the Red River cart in Europe, they were there several thousand, maybe 1,000 years or a couple hundred anyways. And then they came over to Quebec, and Henry Younger, he came from Trois-Rivières, and he settled in Pemmican. On the first night he stayed in Morse, and he went to Pemmican. And Pemmican was a Métis town, just full of Métis. The cemetery and everything was all Métis. And he started the first cart with 4-foot wheels made out of a stump, and then they got bigger and bigger. And now the way those carts are, the way they started up there all over Minnesota, North Dakota, Manitoba, Saskatchewan. They built them originally, and there's thousands and thousands of them. Because in those days, there was no roads, nothing. And all the farmers or the settlers, they used the rivers to drive on, or canoe on, or boat on, and their property was so wide, 2 miles deep, and another 2 miles back there. And all through that, then the river cart just went over the prairies and that. So it was rather interesting. They went from Winnipeg, Saint Eustache, St. Francis, Pembina, and they all pretty well went Pembina, but some of them from Pembina went west to, can't remember the name of the town where the fort was, and they traded there the furs, and they went south, and then they went to cross the river where just a small little creek, and it went north, and then we got to the Red River, and the Red River started where it started with Ottertail. So they crossed there, and from that lake the water went to the Mississippi or into the north.
Wow.
And Linda and we crossed it and seen it one time.
Yep.
It was rather interesting. But then there a lot of times they would cross the Red River at Pemmican over the ferry, or they just take their oxen in the boats or the canoes.
Wow.
Not canoes, but the Red River carts, and take them across the river.
So it sounds like a Red River cart was sort of like an SUV in that time, right?
Yeah.
I would think
Yeah.
maybe you can compare
Yeah.
that, right? Is that it was the only transportation on the prairies,
Yeah.
other than, of course, horseback, or
Right.
and so to be able to carry the furs after a buffalo hunt and carrying all the meat and supplies and everything, I mean, it must have been an amazing transportation to have that instead of carrying everything on your back or by horse, I would imagine.
Yeah, on a buffalo hunt, there'd be thousands of them would get together and go look for where the buffalo were, and they had a captain there and 10 helpers, and they had scouts, and they go find the buffalo.
Yep.
Buffalo herd, and they get all organized, and they would get on their special horses that they could go shoot the buffalo.
Yep.
And the captain would say, "Let's go," and then would go right into the buffalo, and they'd shoot their buffalo with. And then after that was done, the women would come out there with the kids, and they'd skin all the buffalo.
Wow.
And they made the meat, and they had some steps up there that they cut the meat up, and they made pemmican out of it. And pemmican was that, just the meat dried up and squashed up, and then they would put it in packages. And there was a buffalo hunt, or a pemmican hunt, in Winnipeg, in there, because the settlers, they wanted all the buffalo meat,
Yes,
things
yes.
like that.
So do you want to explain what pemmican is for the viewers, just in case there's some people who may not know what pemmican was?
Pemmican, it was mostly from buffalo meat. The women would cut up the meat, and they'd dry it.
Yep.
Right on the prairie.
Yep.
And after they would grind it all up, just like a hamburger.
Yes, yeah.
And then sometimes they would just use that, or sometimes they would put berries in it. And they'd make it up, and that would last 10 and 20 years.
Yes, because they would make them in probably about squares about this big,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so just for a little tidbit for you guys for pemmican, have you guys ever been to McDonald's? If you've had a Big Mac, the calories in a Big Mac would be the same calories in pemmican. So it would fill you up and give you that energy that you needed to go on the buffalo hunt. And
Yeah.
it was easy because the women already smoked and prepared the meat. The meat was already prepped. That you did not have to fry that pemmican. You didn't have to keep it in cold storage. You were able to carry it along with you and take bites out of it and use it along the way. And that's why it was so popular back then, right?
Yeah.
Did it taste good?
Oh, yes, it really tastes good.
But to bind the meat
Yes.
and the berries, they use
The fat.
the fat of the marrow
Mm.
from the legs of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So pemmican would be made up of the fat of the marrow, And the berries, if they were lucky, they would have berries, of course, for most people thought berries were for taste, but it was actually for the nutrients, right? Because they needed
Yeah.
the vitamins, because back then it was very hard to get the vitamins that you
Yeah.
needed to.
Yeah.
And so to have berries, I think, was really, really important.
Yeah.
Right? So whether you were doing fur trades or taking care of your family at home, or if you were a voyageur, pemmican was very popular for everybody who lived there
Yeah.
in that time.
Yeah.
Can we go over the construction of the Red River cart? And I know that there's some really neat details on the Red River cart,
Let's do one.
on the fact
No,
that
the big one.
there
One of
is-
those.
Huh?
Yeah.
there is no metal used to put this cart together. And Aurel will explain how it's put together, but it's a really interesting way on how they designed the cart and how they would get across the river. And I think it would be really important that we explain that.
Yes. These are the two.
One thing too is that the wheel has 37 pieces. to make
Wow.
the wheel.
Wow. 37 pieces to one wheel. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this was all, just remember, in history, this was all hand carved from pieces of wood from the bush, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
is there a certain type of wood that they would use?
Well, a lot of they wanted to use oak, but if you were out in the prairie and all there was poplar around,
Yep.
or ash, well, they had to use that. Eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, these here hold the two sides together, and especially made. There's a unit here cut on a saw, and I'll show you what it's for. This is a little different than the original carts.
Yeah. And right here, Arla has a blueprint of the Red River cart right here. That's what we're on right here.
Yeah.
When was the last larger cart that you've made? Because these are the mini ones that you make now, but
About 5 years ago.
yeah.
Well, like I say, I made 25 of them and shipped them here and there. And I was retired at the time, and then we worked at the St. Norbert Arts Center.
Yeah.
And we made a carpenter shop out of the basement. These are the floorboards
Wow.
that they used on there. And this was the top here.
I'm just gonna lean it up so everybody can sort of see it. So you can see each individual piece was carved. There's a notch right here that he put the floorboards on. So everything is a nice tight fit.
So, what did you do with your last cart? Like, did you give it away or did you just?
Do you have one at home?
Yeah.
No. The last one I gave away, I shipped it to University of Alberta.
Wow.
What it was the Métis in Edmonton. I know them quite well. And they bought the Métis, the cart from me, and they shipped it to the Métis in the University
Yes.
of Edmonton.
So if you were wanting to get a larger cart, who would you speak to about that?
Armand Jerome.
Armin Jerome. Yeah.
Yeah, he's the one that makes all the carts. Now, he's quite younger than us. That's old timers. See, and these are just to hold the boards down. We put a little bit of glue there,
Yes?
a little bit of glue here.
I like the mini ones. What do you think, Mason?
Yeah, I like the mini ones. They're
So
really
The
fun
cool.
to
original
assemble.
ones were all dowels to hold.
Yeah.
Yeah,
To hold it together than the
There's a
quick glue.
method of-
yeah. So then, this is the axle.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You just put it on here. Cut for there. And here's your wheel. See the wheels? They're spoked out differently. so the dirt falls off. It doesn't hit in here.
Oh, so the dirt doesn't collect within
No.
the spokes because of the way it was designed, so it
Yeah.
doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially with our prairie land, if you can think about our prairie land in history, it was the tall grass and probably very swampy, I would imagine.
No, turn it around.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you see here, there's no nails, there's no metal, there's nothing in that way to put together. Everything is made out of the wood. And if they weren't using just the wood, Joseph, we've had this conversation, they used rawhide, correct?
Yes, they did.
And what's the difference between using rawhide and something like sinew back then?
I don't know.
Well, the sinews, the intestines, made with intestines, the rawhide is made with the hide.
Right, so
And the rawhide, you can get big layers,
yeah,
and it's a lot thicker.
which would make more
a lot
sense.
more durable when the wheel is rolling
You
in
can,
the prairies.
yeah. So the rawhide is better for the
And
for
also,
the construction of the cart.
when you install it, you pull it tight to wet, and when it dries up, it tightens.
Wow.
Right in here, there's a joint.
Yeah.
The fellows, there's 6 fellows like this.
And there's the to show the
Yeah.
right there. There's
You
the
can hardly
joint.
see it, eh? And here, they start the rawhide here and wrap it around like this. Comes in here, then you put them underneath there. And when it's wet, when it's dried, would hold this joint together.
Right, and that's how they, wow, like, so the rawhide, they, like he said, put it wet, and then it would expand when it dried, so everything would be nice and tight
Yeah.
on the cart, which
Yeah.
is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then, can we talk about, let's first talk about the uniqueness of the Red River cart and the fact that it was able to go across the prairies. But how would they cross rivers and lakes and ponds with their Red River cart, especially with all the weight of what they carried? So how would they do that?
Go ahead.
All right. They would do the wheels, the disassemble cart.
Yep.
They send the oxen across the river
Yep.
first, and then but they do take the wheels apart, and they put the bevel down. It was like about a 16-inch bevel here.
Yeah.
And they wrap the hide around it. And they tied 2 poles underneath.
And they never
And
moved
they last time together with the
with the
well,
wheel.
with the these parts of the what they call this?
Sides.
Yeah, they're just sides.
Yeah.
So they would wrap the hide around the wheels, but nothing moved from in here. Like they didn't. So that was really unique. That I really want to make sure we get that point is when they moved the wheels underneath to transport over the river, they never moved any of the materials that were inside of the cart. It was just the men adjusting the wheels, preparing it, but they would send the oxen in, and most likely the owner of the cart ahead, correct?
To go get his oxen. No, then he'd go get his oxen.
Right,
Once they cross, because they'd go with the current,
right.
and at an angle.
Very cool.
Not a way of doing it. And they always found a place where it wasn't too steep
Wow.
to get it up. I forget where it was on the Red River here.
The one behind the Charleswood Legion.
Is it?
Yeah, 1,200 carts went across there one year.
Okay.
In the 50s or 60s, can't remember when.
Wow.
And they all they're going to buffalo hunt. They cross on the south side of the Assiniboine. They dry up and down the road they go.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah.
And so you spoke about oxen, how the oxen pulled the cart. That was typical back then. What's the difference between, let's say, a horse pulling it and an oxen?
The speed.
The speed.
The horse walks a lot faster.
Right.
So an oxen walks about 3 miles an hour, and a horse walks 7, I believe.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
it's a lot easier for the people and the kids and the wife to follow when they're walking behind the cart.
It's better with the oxen, so everybody keeps up. And so if you think about 1,200 carts, correct?
Yeah.
And you think of the community walking along with that, it's got to be pretty amazing to see. And I can imagine the noise. You would know it, they were coming by the noise of the cart.
Right.
And what else would you
The
know?
smell.
This. Did you just say smell?
You can smell
Didn't have no
it.
deodorant in those days.
Never took a shower.
No, it was a different time back then, and I think that's a really valid point. So you would hear them and you would smell them, and I'm sure you could see them coming from a distance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which
I
is,
wonder if they got used to the smell.
Oh, they have to. Eh?
yeah.
They'll all smell the same.
But I think the thing is back then, you said it, everybody smelt the same, and they didn't worry about that.
No,
So-
some owners had 4 or 5 carts,
Wow.
and this is the lead cart, and behind here we tie the horse and the cart to this cart,
Yep.
and then they tie it to the back, and then he would guide them all the way along,
Wow.
all the way, from St. Paul to
And
Winnipeg.
they also had a certain amount of wagons with them
Right.
Yeah.
as well.
I mean, the construction of a Red River cart, the fact that they could take the wheels off and be able to travel across rivers and lakes, and the fact that they knew the current, literally they know the current schedule, right? And so
Yeah.
they would use that for their advantage, I think is pretty amazing. And so they would wrap the wheels with hide. And can you tell us why they would wrap the wheels with hide?
It'd be like the skin of a boat,
Yep,
or the leather,
yep,
because it was waterproof. Oiled
Wow.
hides.
yep.
The hides were oiled, so they'd be waterproof.
Yeah.
So it'd also be a barrier for the materials that you were carrying,
Protect-
essentially. So you
The
would
water
protect
couldn't come
everything.
up.
Yeah.
Mm.
That is amazing. And so when the Red River cart, when they arrived at where they were going on the buffalo hunt, how would they set up their carts?
Well, they'd set it up in a big circle,
Mm-hmm.
and with this one would be like Joe would be like that,
Wow.
and they'd have the fires inside. But if you got 1,000 carts, that's a pretty big circle.
It is.
And a lot of times they went into the Sioux territory,
Mm.
and actually, like the Sioux, that's French word for Dakota.
Yeah.
Because there were a lot of Frenchmen were settling and trading and from the north or from the east, eh?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that, so, they would have the big fire, and sometimes where they would all meet, the group from Fort Garry would meet, and another one from Pemmican would meet, another one from St. Eustache would meet, and another one from who knows where would meet, and they all get together.
They travel together.
Yeah, but then they would have a big tall flag,
Mm.
and they're well, that's our group over there,
Right.
and
Wow.
that's our group over there.
So they were very organized on how the community
Oh, yes.
worked together
And very
during the
strict.
buffalo hunt.
There's, yeah,
Yes.
Very strict.
if somebody stole something, they cut their saddle,
Yeah.
and so you never.
There were rules to the
Oh,
buffalo hunt
definitely.
that everybody followed, and
So-
everybody followed those rules.
That's where the captain came in. He was the ruler, just like on a ship.
Yeah.
The captain was the ruler, or
And
captain was the
everybody had a place. Like, it wasn't like when you would go on the buffalo hunt, the children had their chores to do.
Yeah.
Everybody who would go. So it wasn't just the men that went, it was the whole entire families. And so everybody had a job to
Yeah.
do. But one thing I just want to point out is, I want to point out this picture that's just over here. And Aurel, can you tell me a little bit about that picture? Because I sort of recognize you in it.
Well, that's me on a Red River cart. We're on our way to Batoche, and we have somebody took hold of that picture, and then I forget her name. She does painting, and she painted that.
It is absolutely beautiful. Now, when was this cart adventure that you guys went on to Batoche? What year was it?
2004, we started out at St. Norbert, went to Carberry, then we went north, and we stayed in Santa Clara,
Yeah.
and all came back
Yeah.
for the winter. Then 2005, we met that took us 4 weeks.
Wow.
And then in 2005, we met in Santa Clara, and then we met to Batoche. That took us 5 weeks.
Wow. Now, is it comfortable driving or riding in a cart? Or is it, do you have to take some precautions? Like,
Oh, yeah. I mean, because one time I was driving along in a ditch, my wheel fell off. Cart tipped over, but glad the horse stayed.
oh, wow.
And they grabbed a hold of the horse, and I had to get out, put the wheel back on. Down the road we went.
Wow, that's funny. So do you guys normally have spare parts on the Red River cart?
No.
If something
not-
happens?
There'd be no room.
There's no room, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what would they do back then?
Well, I know one place, Armin made an axle. He went in the bush and cut an axle for his cart or one of the carts, eh?
Yes.
We had 5 carts going there.
Wow. Wow.
And most of the time, just 3 carts were going. No, Catherine Moffat, she's a lady from Oakville. She's the only woman that I know has driven more than the men
Really?
this century. Doesn't matter where her cart went, she was on that cart.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Joseph, do you have anything to add?
No, that's
No? You're good? Yeah?
Yeah.
So how long have you guys been building Red River carts? How many years now?
We started off 2002. Yeah, 2002. The Aboriginals were having games here in Winnipeg, and so there was guys with horses from the west, York boats from the north, and canoes from the east, but nobody knew how to build a cart or nothing.
Right.
So Joe knew how to do that. So we met at St. Norbert Art Center, and we built a cart there.
Wow.
We built,
And how many of you guys built the carts?
At that time, we built 5. Eh?
5.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's politics in there.
Of course.
Yeah.
With anything. But it was, how many men were working on those carts?
About 3 of us at a time.
So,
sometimes
Armand?
6.
Sometimes 6.
And you.
On the weekends it'd be more, but on the weekdays, because I was retired, Oral was retired, so
Yeah.
we'd be there pretty well steady.
Yeah. Yeah, we enjoyed it. Well, to say sometimes we'd work to build a cart that cost about 40 hours.
Yeah, I
But
believe it.
we'd be talking, we'd sit down and talk outside there for about 10 hours.
Build for an hour and chat for 10.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Well,
So
good.
if you guys are wanting to purchase or to get these mini carts, you can contact Aurel, which the phone number will be on the episode. And if you are looking for larger carts, they would contact Armand.
Armand, yeah.
Armand, and for that information, you can contact the Louis Riel Institute, and you could just email us, and we can get that information out to you guys. But this has been pretty awesome, hey, Mason?
Yeah.
It's always fun to sit with our elders, and
Yeah.
I would love for you guys to come again, and we love to hear the stories of our history and hear more about the Red River Cart, and
Yeah.
pretty exciting. So,
So,
Like
yeah.
the Northwest Mounted Police, they went to Alberta,
yes,
and they started out at Fort Dufferin,
yeah,
just north of Pemmican.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
And the Métis took all their stuff out that way with the Mounties when they got to Alberta. And the Mounties got to the fort there.
That's very cool.
We were in that fort one
Fort
time.
Steele?
Well, maybe, it could be.
Yeah. So many different forts too, right? And-
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Fort Bragg.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fort
Sergeant
McLeod.
Steele was
Eh?
Sergeant Steele was the head of the RCMP.
Yeah,
back then,
right, yeah.
and in charge of the fort.
Yeah. So it's probably Fort Steele then.
Yeah, because the people or the men in Montana would go into the border and they'd feed all the natives alcohol, cheap stuff,
Oh wow.
you know. And they were all screwed up, and so
Mm.
so they went over there and they were all gone.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah,
That's tough.
But one of the main forts was Fort McLeod.
Right.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's what it was.
Fort McLeod. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Mm.
Very good. Well, thank you guys. Hey,
Yeah.
thank you for having us,
Yeah.
Mason.
Thank
pleasure.
you, Aurel and Joseph, for coming on the show. It was good. And thank you, Mom, for coming on too. So yeah, thank you for teaching me about all the Red River carts and all that. And yeah, I'll see you guys. Actually, you'll see Shirley on Sunday at
That's right.
10
That's right. So
a.m.
make sure you turn into Did You Know? And on Tuesdays, what else do we have?
We have Red River Cart Adventures.
Yes.
So that's hype. So yeah, thank you for watching, and yeah, I'll see you guys next Thursday or Tuesday.
Yes.
All right, bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.